Yesterday class we discussed recovery models, the types of recovery models and their support backups and advantage and disadvantage. And I also shown how to change the recovery model like from simple to full, full to simple or bulk logged. All this done yesterday class. Today we will discuss some other topic that is an important topic, SQL Server Buffer Pool. This also called memory management. Okay, assume that every server it has some memory, right? Even our laptop also. So that is RAM memory. We are talking about random access memory. Let me write. Otherwise, yeah. Okay, that is RAM. Assume that random access memory. That execution process done by the process, that is different story. But that was stored into that memory, right? Now memory is the important part for servers. Now if you are doing something, first it bring into random access memory, right? That is normal things. But when come to the SQL server, now SQL server use some different terminology that is called SQL server buffer pool. Now this is random access memory, nothing but temporary memory. And SQL server use this memory only, but some dedicated portion of this RAM. Now assume that now now this is the SQL memory. Assume. Okay, right? This is RAM. This is now I want to write here buffer pool. This is SQL Server buffer pool. Some SQL Server buffer pool, nothing but some part of the random access memory. Now, if you see that, what is the SQL Server buffer pool functionality, what it can done? Now, what I'm saying that here, this is when SQL Server done something, then it also requires some memory, right? So that memory is called SQL Server buffer pool. that is memory management. That is part of the RAM only again. That is not separate, but that is the part of the RAM memory. Now what it will done? The SQL Server buffer pool is a SQL Server primary memory component, and it is responsible for caching the data pages in memory to minimize disk IO. What is this again? Let me draw. Assume this is data disk. Okay, these are data disk. Drive. Every data stored in the data right in the drive, right? We discussed already types of files: data file, log file. Assume that this is the data file, and I want to draw one more. We already know that is another file, log. There are two MDF file. Assume that this is the MDF and this is the LDFs. It will both are in drives, right? This is the memories. Here, this is the drive. When SQL Server need to read some data, in that first it is bring from data to memory. That is particular in SQL Server buffer pool. This is also cache, also called cache. Now, what SQL Server do? Now, whatever data is available, when this is copied to buffer pool. Okay, bring to that buffer pool. Suppose we are running one query to modify the data, for example. Then SQL Server, what it is, SQL Server database engine, what it will do? First, check the data in the data file and bring into buffer pool. And here it is modifying the data. Okay, here it will modify the data in the SQL Server buffer pool, or whatever it is update, modification, whatever it is done in that SQL Server buffer pool. So now what it is, buffer pool main functionality, store the copy of the data pages from the data file to memory. We already discussed what is the page. Page nothing but that is size is 8 KB, right? That 8 KB of data will store in the SQL Server buffer pool first, like page wise. Why it is stored in the memory instead of disk? Because reduce the physical disk rates for frequently accessed data. You know, in accessing data in the memory, it is very fast compared to the disk. So SQL Server mechanism is first bring the data whatever requested through the query or application. So that data bring to this SQL Server buffer pool. Here it will modify the data like in updates or modification, whatever. Right? Why? Because every time read the data from the drive from the disk or drive, it will take some time. If your memory is ready in that buffer pool, it will be very fast compared to the disk. So SQL Server improve the query performance in this way. Suppose you are doing something, the query read from memory buffer pool, that is memory, instead of disk. Next time if it is someone is requested, what it will do, this is the user wanted to request something information. User, for example, this is one user or application. He wanted to modify or update or something to done in that query. The query is first in database engine, first go to the SQL Server buffer pool and check the data whatever he requested is there or not. First it check. If present in the data, it read from memory. Okay, because it is very fast. That is called cache hit. If it is available, the data whatever requested that database engine from that query, that data is available in case, that is called cache hit. If it is not available, that is called cache miss. Okay, that word is, just remember it, not required now. The SQL Server buffer full, if it is available whatever requested, that query is that data is available in SQL Server buffer pool, it is read from memory because this is the very fast. In case the requested data or information from the user it is not available, then SQL Server take the data from disk. It will go and check the data and it will store first into the buffer pool. And after that modification done in that SQL Server buffer pool. Now from that it will hit, now it is read from this. So whenever this data is available in SQL Server buffer pool, it is very fast. If it is not available, it go and check in that data file and bring the data back to SQL Server buffer pool. And here it will be modify the data. That is actually SQL Server buffer pool functionality. And it will use many things. Now come to this SQL Server buffer pool thing. Now someone asks you how much SQL Server buffer pool take the memory from the RAM. Suppose it is 16 GB of RAM, assume that in your server, how much space it will take? So the answer is depending on equal SQL Server memory setting. As a DBA, we will set that memory for SQL Server. Nothing but we will assign some memory to the SQL Server. Here RAM, it is random access memory. In that server, everything execute in the RAM only, right? Operating system, like SQL Server is the one type of application, might have their other application also. That everything execute in this RAM. In case I am not assigning the some memory to SQL Server, by default it take as much as it required. SQL Server take as much as it required. For example, 16 GB of RAM is there. Now operating system also run. That also requires some memory, for example. And our SQL Server also required some memory. It wanted to allocate some memory. Now, in case SQL Server need more memory, try to allocate as much as possible. And so operating system also try to occupy as much as it required. Both are fighting, right? So in case 16 GB memory is not sufficient for SQL Server and operating system, both fight together for memory and the nothing but server not respond. Clear? Now Now come to this part. So as a DBA, we should assign memory to SQL Server, some dedicated memory. That is the DBA responsibility. How much we want to assign as per best practice? 80% of total RAM you should assign to SQL. How much? 80%. Again, it is not fixed 80%, but normally you use 80%. Let me type it. How much it we want to assign? 80% of total assign memory to SQL. 80% of total RAM, total memory, physical memory. This is total memory, available memory. Again, this is RAM, total available memory. Okay, total available memory. This is the best practice. Okay, and again, some company they have their own policies. If it is 100 memory RAM, for example, I'm saying total RAM is available on the server 100 GB. Assume that. Then 80 assigned to SQL, 20 leave it to the operating system and other application to run. So now SQL Server dedicatedly use only 80% of total available memory. This is that assume this is total 80%. So only it will try to assign this memory only, not beyond that. That is called SQL Server max memory. I will show you that how to assign. So here now 20% will leave for other to run on the server. For example, operating system and some other application are running on the some other same server. Then that 20% utilized by this that other rest of the memory. Now SQL use only 80% of SQL server. We provided dedicated memory to SQL server. How to assign this? I will tell you that. Now open the SQL Server Management, right click, Properties. If you go to the memory, right, here minimum server memory, maximum server memory. By default, it is this is the value. By default, it is the default values. Now we need to override this. Suppose I have that memory, how much memory in my computer? For example, my laptop or in server. Now I wanted to check memory, how much memory it is. Now see that now there are 15.8 GB, nothing but 16 GB of memory. If you want more detail, then we'll go for here, system information. See, this is open the system information, how much memory it is therein for my laptop. This is give that clear. See here, install physical memory, RAM is 16 GB. Now in 16 GB, I want to assign 80%. What is that 80% of total RAM memory of 16 GB? See here how to calculate. Total RAM is 16 GB. into 1024. Because why I'm calculating into 1024? This is SQL Server memory in MBs. So 1024 MB is equal to 1 GB. So 16 GB wanted to convert into MB. So 16 into 1024. Now this will get 16,384 MB. Now in that I wanted to assign 80% into 80%. What is the total? 13,000, around 13 GB. Okay. Now total 16 GB, we are using 13 GB around, and rest of 3 GB are leaving to OS. So you can assign here 13,107. Okay, otherwise 13. The best practice is better to use 13 GB exactly number 13 into 1024. That is good practice. 13, 30, 312. Just memory. 13, 312. 13312. And if you want to script out, you can script out. Otherwise, you can select OK. See here. Now this is that memory through the query. By using sp configure, you can write how to assign memory with query. And if you don't want this query, just click OK. This is again on fly. No need to restart SQL Server. There is a question. Someone ask you like, if you wanted to change the memory, do you want restart the SQL Server? See here and go and check that properties. No, right? It changed value. If you click running value, this is it is showing means it is already assigned and now it is running. So no need to restart. Now, now we assign 13 GB of memory out of total 16 GB. Come to our class. Now total RAM is 16 GB. Out of 16 we assign the 13 GB. Okay, 13 GB. That 13 GB use the SQL Server. Now come to the other part. We granted memory, that dedicated memory to SQL Server. This part is done. Now comes to regular thing. Now something is modifying. Someone user want to modify the data. We already discussed. If it is available, that calculation done in the SQL Server buffer full. It is not available, then bring to that from disk to SQL Server buffer full. Nothing but it is buffer full is called cache. SQL Server cache. So in this SQL Server buffer full, again I will write SQL Server buffer full also called cache, where I can write in bracket. Okay, someone confused with some time. Okay, I will write here. This is called cache. Okay, come to back. Now, word, new terminology. What is dirty page? Now, I will write here dirty page. So these are interview questions again. What is that dirty page? I will write here. In buffer pool, what are the current modifying pages? What are the current modifying pages? Is called dirty page. Now what is dirty page? In buffer pool, what are the current modifying pages is called dirty page. Right. Now, now come to other thing. Just learn the terminology here. They will ask what is dirty page. In buffer pool, what are the current modifying pages is called dirty page. Why name is given dirty page? This is currently modifying, that not yet committed to data file. So that page may or may not contain the correct information because still it is modifying, right? Now 10, suppose your salary is 10,000. Now it is query is modifying to 15,000, or might they back to 9,000 also because it's updating something. So that it is not have correct information until unless it is commit. Commit mean that every transaction done, that updation done and back to that page and committed, then it is called original data. But it is doing something modifying, right? So that modifying that the pages is called dirty page. Simply remember in buffer pool what are the current modifying pages is called dirty page. Okay. Now come to the other point. We already discussed yesterday one terminology that is called checkpoint. Checkpoint. What is checkpoint? Actually, the single word, but yeah. What is checkpoint? We already discussed now, in database engine perform the modification data pages in memory, right? Whatever modification done in the memory or in the buffer cache, and doesn't write pages to disk after every changes. What SQL service? It is not write the back to this one. That is the problem. So then what it will done? So that is flush the data from memory to disk. Nothing but it will it will write the data from memory to disk. Simple option, a simple answer checkpoint is flush dirty pages to disk. Simple answer. Behind lot of story, but you can say simply dirty pages that flush the data, flush the dirty pages to disk, pages to disk. These are the interview question, guys. Flush the dirty pages to disk. That is called checkpoint. Yesterday in last class, we discussed recovery model. In that we heard one checkpoint word, the terminology. That is terminology I wanted to clarify here. Now dirty page checkpoint. Checkpoint nothing but flush the dirty pages to disk. What is the story behind that? Database engine perform the modification to data pages in the memory and doesn't write back to that disk. So SQL Server database engine periodically run the checkpoint. So checkpoint what will do? It will flush the dirty pages to disk. And checkpoint also write the record that information in the transaction log file. Okay. Now come to that other point. Checkpoint feature functions. What are the checkpoint functions? We discussed now flush the dirty pages to disk, right? Now in case one more thing, in case that a lot of pages are modifying in the SQL Server buffer full because many requests due to workload. Now might it is goes to the memory pressure because there is a limited memory. If lot of pages are going to modified here, there is a memory pressure. So is this checkpoint care this? No, does not check the memory pressure. That is the drawback of checkpoint. Checkpoint does not check the memory pressure. But who will check? Will come to that. And when this checkpoint is run, SQL Server periodically or internally it will run by default. And apart from that, it also run when it is if you perform any DDL statement, checkpoint will occur. Or if you are doing some backups, then also it will checkpoint run. Now, if you are wanted to run the checkpoint manually, then also you can run it. What is that? How to run? What is the command? Suppose I want to run the checkpoint. Just type this checkpoint and execute it. So checkpoint is run. Nothing but modifying the data pages flush to the disk. This checkpoint work is that one. And if you are performing backups, we have the next topic. Then also checkpoint is run. And now, and this is the manual part. Check if you run the checkpoint, it will flush the data, dirty pages from memory to disk. And if you run that any DDL command, it also by default it will run backend. This is the background process here. If you want to see now, if you, I wanted to show you who to active or who to, you can run anything. Okay. Now come here. If you see here, there is that checkpoint also somewhere. See, this is all that, but at present checkpoint not there. I want to trigger them. Let me see. Hmm. Now I want to open another window. Let me see. I want to run checkpoint some interval 30 second. Incorrect sentence. Checkpoint 30. Okay. Now I want to see this checkpoint that is 30 second. That means, oh, again I write two times. Let's see. I wanted to show here checkpoint. Is there anywhere you are seeing? Yes. See here. This is the checkpoint. Background process it is running. So this is the background process. Checkpoint is running. This all will done background only. Okay, and it will run by default also. By default, or if you want to run manually, we can run checkpoint like this. So this I wanted to show you. Now clear, right? Come to the actual one. Now types of checkpoints. Direct checkpoint. Types of checkpoints I will write. Might ask in interview. Here I am writing types of checkpoint. Types of checkpoint. Types of checkpoint. Okay. Now direct checkpoint. One is direct checkpoint. I want to write some other color. Okay. This is direct checkpoint. Assume that this is okay. Direct checkpoint. What is direct checkpoint? Which is the default checkpoint triggered by the SQL Server engine. Direct checkpoint nothing but this is the default checkpoint triggered by the SQL Server engine. Okay. Now come to that manual checkpoint. Just we discussed that we manual checkpoint nothing but we need to run that checkpoint manually. Manual checkpoint. Just we run right checkpoint. This is manual checkpoint. First one is direct checkpoint is SQL Server trigger this checkpoint by default. The second one is manual checkpoint. We need to run like command checkpoint. Now come to that indirect checkpoint also there. What is the indirect checkpoint? Direct, indirect. Okay, checkpoint. What are the indirect checkpoint? Now, indirect checkpoint like the checkpoint rise when any SQL Server technical activities. The checkpoint trigger when any SQL Server technical activities like backup operations, attach, detach. We will discuss later on what is attach and detach, and SQL Server restart. We restart SQL servers right when also indirect checkpoint is run, and also cluster failovers. We are not we will discuss later on the cluster failovers. What is that? Now this situation indirect checkpoint will occur. Backup operation, attach detach operation, SQL server restart, cluster failover, and some more. This situation checkpoint will occur. Okay, that good thing. Now we are in that we covered dirty page, checkpoint, and buffer pool. Dirty page nothing but in buffer pool. What are the current pages modifying? What are the current modifying pages? That is called dirty page. Checkpoint nothing but flush dirty pages to disk. That is the main job of the checkpoint. And there are types of checkpoint. And we discuss right when memory pressure in this SQL server, then checkpoint don't care about it. That is the problem in checkpoint. That is a drawback. So when memory pressure is occur in SQL Server buffer pool, nothing but memory is full. They won't bring the new pages to SQL memory or other request not not bring into the memory because memory is under pressure. There is no enough memory to hold that pages to modify. Then is the drawback. How it will come that new pages to modify? Then requester that wait for that. So SQL Server query will be run slow because there is no memory to modify the pages or update pages in the SQL Server buffer pool because it is already in pressure. Already lot of requests are there, and that memory is full. So who will take care? That's why the Microsoft SQL in Microsoft introduced one more technology that is called lazy writer. We will discuss what is lazy writer now. We will come to this diagram also. Now come lazy writer. What is lazy writer? Dirty page checkpoint, now lazy writer. What is that main purpose? This one also, this one also flush the dirty pages. 1 minute guys, something I'm getting called. Okay. Now the lazy writer is flush the pages from buffer to disk. This is same like checkpoint, but flush the pages from buffer to disk. Buffer to disk. Where is that? Flush the pages from buffer to disk. This also flush the pages from nothing but write the pages from buffer full to disk. But what is different between here checkpoint and lazy writer? We can think, right? This also background process like checkpoint it will write. Now lazy write work only when the system running with memory pressure or running out of memory. When it is run, when the SQL server under memory pressure, then only it will run the lazy writer. Simple. Lazy writer works only when the system is running with memory pressure or running out of memory. Then only it is right. Run that lazy writer. That's what it is called lazy. Means it is sit idly until unless memory is pressure or memory going to under out of memory. It's nothing but running out of memory. Then SQL Server says to the lazy writer, now the memory is running out of memory. Please go and flush that pages from buffer to disk. Then only lazy writer. That only it will come to the picture. And then lazy writer flush the pages from buffer to disk. Whatever it is pages in that buffer. What type of pages it will flush that from memory to uh, disk. Now we will discuss. Example, again I am saying lazy writer flush the pages from buffer to disk. Now what pages it will flush? Unused pages. In the buffer pool there are unused pages. It will check and push to that flush to the data from buffer to disk, and remove that pages to free up the space in the RAM. Now there is not an use in that pages that already modified and everything is done, but sitting in that SQL Server buffer pool. Then it will check that oldest pages or unused pages. That pages move to from buffer to disk. That is the lazy writer. The lazy writer only thing is write or flush the pages from buffer to disk. Clear? Okay. Now I will write here when it is come to picture. And one more thing. Where is that? We run the checkpoint manually, but lazy writer we cannot run manually. It is internal process, background process. We cannot touch it. Now I want to write here this was lazy writer works only when system is running with memory pressure, with memory pressure, or out of the running out of the memory. Better running out of the memory is better, I think. Running out of the memory. This is important again. Okay, lazy writer works only when the system is running out of the memory or memory pressure. Whatever you want, you can write down. So what it will do now? Allocate space for new pages in the buffer pool. That main job is to free up the space in the SQL Server buffer pool. Now come to that other topic. Now what is this? New one. Write, write ahead. New one. I will discuss logging. Write ahead logging. This is one more interview question. Internal process. This all are okay. Write ahead logging. What is write ahead logging? We'll discuss today. Okay. You know, write ahead logging means we will write in bracket WAL most. Write ahead logging means that SQL Server write to the transaction log ahead of other database files. What does that mean? When a modification occur, the changes will made in memory, right? Modification or update where it is made in the memory, nothing but SQL Server buffer pool. The changes will made in memory and then write into the transaction log file. What is this? I will explain it here. Now, whatever modified the data first write into that transaction log file. Again, I am repeating. Write ahead log means the SQL Server write the transaction log ahead of other data files. Instead of writing in the data file, first it will write in the log file. So that is called write ahead logging. The change will made in memory and then write into the transaction log file. It record whatever modifying in the transaction log file first. Then after only it will move to that data files. So that is called write ahead logging. So every transaction should write first into LDF file. That is called write ahead logging. I will write here. Write ahead logging. I will write here. Every transaction. Oh, what happened? Wait. Okay. Every transaction. Every transaction should write first into LDF file. This concept is called WAL. Nothing but write ahead logging. Simple. Write ahead logging means whatever modifying or data in the buffer pool first write into that LDF file. That is called write ahead logging. Um, let me write something different color. Okay. Okay. Better to write every transaction modifying in in memory in buffer full. Better na? Buffer full should write buffer full should write first into LDF file rather than I will write the head of where is that? This is better, I think. Otherwise, you will conflict. Every transaction modifying the buffer pool should write first into LDF file instead of data file. If you want instead of, I think it will. You will get this is better clarity. Okay, this is enough. Every transaction modifying the buffer pool should write first into LDF file. This concept is called write ahead logging. That's enough. Now, write ahead logging. Again, I am repeating this. Whatever modifying the pages in the buffer pool before flush the data to disk, that is data file, first write into that log file. Writing that modify pages to the data pages, first write into the log file. Here database is nothing but MDF file, log file nothing but LDF file. So when flushing the data, first it will write the data, all the data in log file, then after only it is committed in that data file. So that is the reason only write ahead logging. Now what are WAL recovery process are there? What are the recovery process? Analysis phase, redo phase, undo phase. I will write. This is last again. We are in end of place. WAL recovery process. WAL recovery process. What are that? That is called, when it is recovery process is used in case of failure. In case anything failure in that, something it is very big. Wait. Okay, I will write different color. Right. In case failure of transaction or something in the SQL server, the, then WAL recovery process is there. Then SQL server, what will run? SQL server uses the WAL protocol process, protocol to recover. What are that? Analysis space, redo space, undo space. What are these? I will tell you. Now there are analysis spaces, redo space, and undo space. In analysis space, identify the dirty pages and active transaction at time of failure. In the middle of transaction is fail, in case you are doing some transaction, the system got failed. So WAL is come to picture. It identify the dirty pages. Dirty pages is nothing but modifying pages in the buffer pool, right? And active transaction at time of failure, that is analysis. The ready phase, what will do? Reapply committed transaction from the log. We already written that everything information in the redo, right? In the log file. After failure, it will go and check the analysis, and if it is failure anything, by using then identify by using analysis phase, and then in the redo phase it will go to the transaction log file, and it will bring that transaction committed from the log file and reapply to that. Then it will commit back to this data files. So whatever missing transaction, it will cover here. And in case undo phase, now it is something is not committed. For example, you withdraw the 100 rupees, you withdraw, but in middle mission is corrupted or failed. The system not written that you have the 100 rupees already withdrawn. That that information not there in the system. So then it is conflict, right? You have withdraw, but that withdraw amount not deducted from your account. In between, transaction is fail. So that time, you know, analysis phase is verify that, identify dirty pages and active transaction the time of failover, are ready phases, reapply the transactions. We you already write ahead log already written the all the transaction that LDF, right? So it will bring back to from LDF and reapply this transaction. You withdraw, that withdraw information is available in the transaction file, and it is not available data files. Now this transaction file, when it is failover, it bring back to the memory and commit into the database. Now your undo phase, in case you are withdrawing the amount but you enter the everything information, it is in the process of amount from the machine to your hand. The amount whatever you are withdrawing 100 rupees, the process of in between machine and you, then it is failover. You didn't get the money, but the that it is said you deducted the amount, but it didn't get the amount. In between the transaction got failed. Then what will happen? Undo phase is there. Then it will check that and roll back uncommitted transactions. That means you didn't get the money, and that amount will again deposit to your balance and update your balance, your bank account. For example, this all the phase is done in the WAL recovery process. The WAL write ahead logging is very important role here. Okay, this is the process of dirty page, checkpoint, lazy write, write logging page. Now, this all done due to the SQL Server buffer full. This everything is that interview question only. Many question, many dirty page, checkpoint, lazy writer, write head logging. Okay, these are the very important topic today because totally theoretical it is and totally background process. I will provide that. You can take the screenshot of all this thing. 1 minute. I will provide to you. Yes, I am bringing for you. You can take the snap quickly. Where is that? Okay, here. Take the snap. Now how the buffer pool works. And this is the dirty page checkpoint. It has a lot of definition, but in interview just say that flush dirty pages to disk. Already I mentioned here, right? This is good enough. Flush dirty pages to disk. These two dirty pages. What is checkpoint? Simple. But this is the understanding purpose. When in interview, if they wanted to ask in detail, then you can go through that. Otherwise, just flush the dirty pages to disk. That is enough. Okay. Now types of checkpoints, including syntax. Direct checkpoint interval we also can change. By default it is 0. But if you want to run every 30 second, 40 second, we also change it, but we don't want to touch it. Just but this is the syntax in case if you want. And manual checkpoint. This is the syntax checkpoint. We already done. Okay, then come to that indirect checkpoints. This enough, only indirect checkpoint is enough. You can take the snap. Manual checkpoint, indirect checkpoints. Take the snap. And I just wanted to show you. I already shown in that SSMS checkpoint background how it is run. I shown you. Now I want to show that lazy writer also. Just how it is run. If you can see that here, here also lazy writer also there. If you see log writer, lazy writer, this one. If you run sp underscore, if you see lazy writer, yes, here, and if you see anywhere, we are running only less transaction, right? And checkpoint is here, right? These are the internal background process. If you see lazy writer background, if you see checkpoint, where is the checkpoint? This is the background. So these all are the background process. This I wanted to check with you. And now almost this is critical part covered. Now tomorrow backups. First we'll go to that what is backup, and then we'll take to that practical session. Okay. Thank you guys. Today's class we will catch you on next class. Thank you.